So Republicans are reaping what they've sown. They went after and were embracing and encouraging the racism, the extreme religious fanaticism of the Christian right-wing wackos. It's endorsing ignorance. Don't pay attention to news sources, has been the Republican credo since Nixon, an infamous criminal. They're still doing the same thing. For years now, they've gone after this segment of the population. And Trump is that example. He is an old racist. He's the birther thing. Remember, you should know about that one. There was this white supremacist idiot guy, was so pissed off that Obama got elected president that he said, oh no, he's not a president. He's not, because he's not born in America. He's not an American citizen. Totally a racist thing. Just something to try and say, no, stop, Stop the black man from being the president. And you would think after the disaster of Bush-Cheney, where the 8 years of Republican economics shows you what happens, you tanked with the 2008 economic collapse, which was guaranteed to happen because you were following Republican economics, the fraud of Republican economics. Wasn't the first time. Reagan did the same thing. Took you into the red and debt. Gave big tax breaks to the rich. Corporations. Took away poison and pollution guidelines and regulations so the corporations could just dump all their crap on you and your food and your water and your air. Because that's what Republicans are. They don't care about you. They only care about profit. Even if it poisons and pollutes the whole world. And to encourage this, they've had to develop, and they have since Nixon, this whole segment that they've been going after of right-wing nuts, lunatics, Christian wackos, Nazis, Ku Klux Klan, white supremacists, ignorance, intentional ignorance. And they've meshed it in with that is, you can't, the media, you can't trust the news. Oh, no, you can't. Of course, they don't want you to trust the media because the media, independent journalism, is always finding out what a bunch of criminals Republicans are. It's obvious. That's why they don't want you to look at the media. And that was intentionally the idea of the creation of Fox News. Roger Ailes was a criminal friend of the criminal Nixon. And Roger Ailes went out and created Fox News to intentionally be right-wing propaganda. And like we always say, you should know that. So that when anybody says, it was on Fox News, well, then it was just right-wing wacko stuff. It wasn't news. It was intentionally slanted to the right wing, loonies, Republicans. Well, they've come up and are, reaping what they sow. Here you got Trump at the time of this recording. He's going to start more overtly getting impeached, isn't he? Here, this one's recording is yet in January. 2019. And February, Michael Cohen, Trump's own personal attorney, is going to testify under oath. Yeah. And all the other information related to this, Paul Manafort and his money laundering for the Ukrainian mafia, Trump having his ties to the Russian mafia for years because of his debts. He's borrowed heavily from the Russian mafia. And even at the time of this recording, the FBI itself is saying, from Trump's behavior in relation to Russia, it seems like Trump is acting as an agent of Russia. It's even that obvious in what they're finding out, and they're digging around in evidence. Well, what do you expect? That's who Republicans are. Big corporation criminals, Trumpy boy. Big time right-wing nuts, Trumpy boy. Racist, white supremacists, Trumpy boy. There you go. The only missing part right there is also the Christian right-wing nuts. But that's Vice President Pence as well. Well, the reaping what they sow again. Economics is going to tank again. I mean, how many times the American public has to see that each time you do Republican economics, you have Republican-caused economic failure. Reagan, Bush Cheney, Trump. Each time it's the same economically. The American public is kind of wake up consistently and remember, oh yeah, Republican economics. Disaster. Each time the Republicans dupe some amount of the American public and say, oh, you're going to get a tax break. We're going to give you a tax break. They dangle this little carrot out in front of you like it's something, like it's gold, and it's really going to do something for you. Then a year or so later, after you get this flimpy-wimpy tax cut, Republicans come back and say, and Congress come back and say, doggone it, Medicare just doesn't have any funding. It's just not running right. It's just, doggone it. The Veterans Administration, it's just not running right. You can't service these vets. It's just not happening. And any other department that they want to get rid of, too. Because, guess why? They cut the source of revenue, tax money. And then they come back with the excuse a year or two later and come, oh, geez, they're just that VA stuff, it's just not working. We just got to give it over to corporations to run. Oh, and then you're really screwed. You should know that. Corporations that are only about profit, they aren't about you. So you're going to turn our veterans over to people who only really care about the profit that they're going to make? They're not there to help veterans. They're there to make profit first. They'll cut services, cut businesses, cut hours, cut medications, anything, just as long as they make profit. Or suddenly you're going to find, geez, we're spending a lot to this corporate entity that's running the Veterans Administration. Geez, it's really costing us a lot of taxpayer money. Even more than it did when you were just responsible for it. with your tax money. Because Republicans are really about corporations, they're not about you. Never have been. They're just there to rip you off and get profit. There's a perfect example. Trump. He's the embodiment. And there he is, colluding with Russia, making deals with Putin and the Russian mafia. So desperate to do anything to win, like he always has been. He didn't care about laws. He's never had to care about law. He just gets his lawyers, and they clean up the mess behind him. And his lawyer, Michael Cohen, got thrown under the bus by Trump because, well, in the public eye, all this stuff comes out because we still have an independent news media and journalism. Not like Russia. Russia, that's total controlled under Putin. You ain't going anywhere. Putin has killed off 4 journalists already, who each one of them, they all found out about Putin's criminality. They were going to report it to a grand jury. Putin killed him. There was even one, at the time of this recording, about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe a little more, of the Russians, Putin, trying to kill a journalist in England, trying to shut him up. That's what Republicans want. They want you all just listening to Fox News, the ignorant channel, the right-wing wacko channel. So of course, because they're lying to you, because everything they do is about the corporate profit and screwing you over and keeping you from voting and embracing right-wing Christian wackos to promote their kind of twisted view of morality and whatnot into legislation, which is, of course, completely against the Constitution. We separate church and state. But here you go. With Trumpy boy, you're seeing the whole thing play out. Who Republicans really are. It's not just Trump. It's Pence, right-wing Christian wacko, criminal. It's Flynn. It obviously was involved with Cohen. It's Paul Manafort. It's Jeff Sessions. It was Lion Paul Ryan. It's Mitch McConnell. Every single Republican in the Senate, in the House, in your state legislatures, if you have a state governor, a Republican, they all have gone down the tubes of right-wing extremism. And it's all against you. Reap what they sow.